Formula One on 5 Live.
Hello and welcome back to Austin, Texas. F1 takes centre stage this weekend, deep in the heart of America, in the Lone Star State. The sun still shines in the huge Texan sky, and after a few hours break from a dramatic sprint race, coming your way in a few minutes' time is Grand Prix qualifying, and guiding you through every flying lap is myself, Harry Benjamin, up in the commentary box. Alongside me is the 1996 F1 World Champion, Damon Hill. Damon, have you just about caught your breath after this afternoon's sprint?
I have just about, Harry. I mean, there was a lot of excitement about it because there was so much happening, and everything I predicted was going to happen didn't happen, and everything I didn't predict did. So that just shows you how much I know about. I said that they're going to go easy. They don't normally go crazy, but there were so many incidents in that event. But of course, crucially, the thing was both McLarens were knocked out, or knocked themselves out of the race, and there's a bit of a discussion going on as to who's to blame, as you might expect. Sometimes it's just a pure racing incident, but we've been reviewing it as we've got our own ideas. We might discuss that later on.
We absolutely will throughout the course of this qualifying session, because we kind of, and all the drivers have to do a bit of a reset, but some of them took, as we have just discussed, a bit of hefty damage in that sprint race, with just a couple of hours to try and get all the things bolted back together again. So it's been a busy one. Keeping an eye on things for us down on the ground is Jenny Gow. Jenny, are we going to get all 20 cars ready in time for quali?
I think we will, just. It's been a very tight turnaround for 5 of the drivers and their teams, respectively. So McLaren had a big build afoot, so both rear ends had to be changed on both of the cars. Piastri also had front wing damage as well. The floor needed to be replaced, all sorts of damage for Piastri. It looks like Norris got away slightly lightly, even though he went up in the air the most. Aston Martin, they had a total rebuild of both cars. Apparently that's gone well. They're both back and ready to go. And the last one was Haas, and they had a big rebuild on their hands as well. So that's all been done. Yes, all 20 cars should take to the track for qualifying.
That's good news. Thank you very much, Jenny. If you missed it earlier, Max Verstappen won the sprint ahead of George Russell and Carlos Sainz, whilst Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri both failed to finish after first lap contact. Nico Hülkenberg started 4th and came together with Piastri at the first corner. Alonso involved in that incident as well. That sent the Australian ultimately into his teammate Norris, and both of the McLarens then picking up 0 points, and that led Max Verstappen, who started on sprint pole, with an uninterrupted view to the end of the race. With a bit of pressure from George Russell early doors, it soon faded. So whilst in the championship and on the constructors side that is all done and dusted with McLaren the victors, there's still a fierce fight for second, third and fourth between Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull. But in the drivers' championship, 22 points it still remains between Oscar Piastri, who leads, to Lando Norris. But it was Max Verstappen, Damon, who was able to claw in points. He's now 55 points away from the championship lead. It's still a gap, but, well, it's a little less than 63. It was yesterday this time.
Yeah, he's a little bit, I said this before, it's a bit like that Jaws, isn't it? You can hear that music coming as Max is gradually getting closer and closer to his prey. Both McLarens, of course, he's got to get past both of them in the championship, which is a tall order, but then tall orders is what Max is very good at sorting out.
Well, qualifying then just over a minute away. Let's bring in the BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, who's also alongside us. Now, coming into this weekend, Andrew, there's a lot of talk about consequences, particularly for Lando Norris. We're not quite sure what they might relate to, because Zak Brown and the McLaren team were not divulging that information. And also, I suppose, in the context of what we've seen in the sprint race, what are you expecting maybe to see, or what should we be looking out for in this qualifying session with how the McLaren drivers operate?
Well, one of the things that's interesting going into this is that Verstappen has had an entire sprint race to assess the setup of his car and make any changes to make it faster for this qualifying session, whereas the McLaren drivers have not, because they went out on the first corner of the race. So they're going to be focusing on rebuilding their cars rather than changing them to make them any better. And of course, Verstappen was already faster than them in the qualifying yesterday for the sprint. It's been an interesting period, actually, these last 3.5 hours or whatever it's been, with everybody in the paddock obviously discussing the rights and wrongs of that first corner incident. McLaren have very much doubled down on the belief that it was nothing to do with Oscar Piastri at all. It was all to do with Nico Hülkenberg and Fernando Alonso on his inside. Zak Brown, the chief executive officer of McLaren Racing, called it amateur hour and said clearly Nico drove into Oscar and he had no business being where he was. And team principal Andrea Stella said it's surprising that some drivers with a lot of experience don't act with just full prudence. Now, and there's also been an exchange between Lando Norris and a Sky Italia reporter where she asked him, do you expect there to be any consequences for Piastri as a result of this incident? And Norris basically said, well, why should there be consequences? He got driven into. He got hit by another car. Now, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, it's not sure whether I like to express my opinion in these instances, but I think that a lot of people think it's a racing incident, and if there was more blame on one car than another, you could argue that Oscar Piastri was the one who didn't display just full prudence by cutting inside as much as he did on that corner, trying to get inside Lando Norris, having got a better start than him. And I believe that my esteemed colleague on my right here, the 1996 world champion, shares a similar sort of view.
Well, having watched it replayed now a few times from very interesting aerial, much more revealing aerial angles in slow motion that Harry's got on his computer.
It's sort of it's my own. It's the BBC analysis.
Okay, BBC analysis. Well, so, but you know, it's much easier to judge given a bit of time and looking back at it. At the time, I saw the on-board from Nico Hülkenberg, and I have to say I thought that Nico went in too deep, but I hadn't seen to what extent Oscar had cut back in an attempt to undercut Lando, who'd gone in deep and a bit wide. And of course, when you look at it that way round, it does look like Oscar took a little bit of a impetuous kind of decision to move in and cut across Nico. We had nowhere to go because he's got Fernando Alonso that's inside. So I think Nico is justified in feeling a little bit caught out by Oscar's sudden move. And as we know, in the start of the Grand Prix, you have to be a little bit careful about making sudden moves because you're surrounded by cars. Whichever way you go, you're going to move into someone else's line. And I think Oscar might look back at that incident and go, maybe I should have just calmed it down a little bit there.
I think what's interesting, taking a step back about this, of course you can't expect Andrea Stella and Zak Brown to blame their own drivers. They're trying to take the sting out of this incident. They'll review it when they get back to the UK, or maybe between this race and Mexico, which of course is only a week away. But I've been talking to Andrea Stella a lot this year, as you would expect, and on the big picture stuff, as we watch Esteban Ocon do his first qualifying lap, which is the noise in the background.
We've got a Hadjar off, by the way. A yellow flag. Hadjar has hit the
crashed.
wall at turn 13 quite dramatically. We were just going to wait for the first flying laps to come in, really. But Hadjar, on an out lap, or his first flying lap, he was flying through Sector 1, has hit the wall quite hard. He says he's okay on the radio. The front's completely ripped off. He's made contact with the rear as well. And we can see the frustrations of Isack Hadjar, who is gesticulating with his hands and his helmet, almost hitting the hands device and the shoulder rest that surrounds him in the cockpit of his Formula One car. We know how emotional Isack Hadjar can get. Just think back to his first race in Formula One in Australia. But before we've really even begun here in qualifying, Hadjar is out of this one, and looks like for the Grand Prix on Sunday he'll be starting right at the back.
Yeah, he's very, very cross with himself. You can see him. We can see him sitting in the car. He's banging his helmet as if to punish himself. He clearly is annoyed that he's made the mistake, and as we know from his very first race, he's kicking bits of debris that he's ripped off the tyre barrier as well now, so he's clearly frustrated, but there's nothing we can do about it now. And he also is interrupted. We're going to watch a replay now, so we'll give you a bit more information as to how that happened. He's going through the very fast left-right sequence, and he just lost it, and it's hefty impact into the barrier. You probably heard that thump, and so he knows that was a driver error, and he's out of the qualifying, the first guy to drop the ball, as he did do in Australia in the Grand Prix. But he's put a lot of miles between that first race and now, so I think he can be excused. You can get away as a novice you can get away with a few of those, but clearly not something you want to do on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely, and with a podium to his name now. So I think I said turn 13 initially. I was following the graphics on screen. I should have known better. It was the S's, as you were saying, Damon, in the high-speed section coming through 5 and into 6 as the medical car is now with him and the car being recovered.
Yeah, I mean, it's early in the lap. Sometimes it can be you haven't got the tyres up to temperature, but there's a little bit of a following wind. I think it's still the same direction as it was in the sprint this morning. Most of the weekend, actually, we've had a very strong tailwind through that section, which makes the car what we call loose. So the front end sticks, but the rear end just loses a little bit of downforce. And if you're going right and left at high load, then of course you don't need a light rear end of the car, because it just swings around, pendulums around, and that's what appeared to happen there for Isaac.
Well, a real shame for Isaac Hadjar, who is out of this one. 9 Grand Prix points finishes to his name so far. He's made Q3 11 times, more than any driver outside the big 4 teams, but that will not continue for today under the sun here in Texas while they get rid of Isaac Hadjar's stricken Racing Bulls. Let's just finish up our conversation on McLaren, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Jenny Gow, I believe you've got some more.
Well, I was speaking to the team just before I came down into the pit lane to just find out exactly what damage has happened, a lot, but also how the boys were feeling ahead of qualifying, because obviously it's a big thing to happen in the morning and then to get back into the car. But actually, the team was saying that they very quickly transferred their focus from what had happened this morning or earlier on today in that sprint race to qualifying, and just trying to calm everything down, take their time and think, okay, what matters now? Don't look at the past, look at forward and get qualifying nailed and do your best job there, and don't worry about anything else. So I think they're both feeling very positive going into this qualifying session. They know the pace is there. They know certainly tomorrow for the race the pace is there in the McLaren. They just have to have faith in what they do and what the team do.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Red flag out just as a reminder, so the clock stops for this qualifying session. Everyone back into the pits now with 40 minutes and 51 seconds remaining on the clock. Isaac Hadjar out of this one.
Yeah, Jen. Sorry.
Yeah, go on, Andrew. Yeah.
Jenny's absolutely right that McLaren, it was very clear from talking to them immediately after that session that they were much more focused on getting everything right for qualifying, settling everything down and making sure that the business end of the weekend, where most of the points are, didn't go awry because of what happened in the sprint. And they didn't want to, they were obviously entertaining our questions about the incident, but they wanted to push it to one side, if you like. And that is a very grown-up and sensible approach, of course, for a race team, and exactly what you'd expect of Andrea Stella. But the point I was trying to make earlier was that it was interesting hearing him and Zach Brown talking about how it was more Hülkenberg and Alonso for the incident rather than Piastri. Because one of the things he said to me this year, Andrea Stella, is it's not important that we're right. It's not about proving that you're right in racing controversial situations. It's important the points we have. And that's what Piastri has not got right in this situation, ultimately. Whether it's his fault more, or Hülkenberg's fault more, or Alonso had something involvement, or Norris was not entirely blameless because he had a slow start, and everyone was involved, and it was a first corner melee, yes. But his job was to score as many points as he possibly could in that sprint in pursuit of the World Championship, and he's failed at that job effectively this morning.
Well, the agenda for McLaren is to be it's for the first time to have won the Constructors and come 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship since 1989, Senna and Prost. And so, I mean, that is a target for them. They've
actually been saying that on the record this weekend, yeah.
So it's just exactly that. So now that their drivers have jeopardised that potential, they don't want to have a half-baked victory. Constructors is fantastic and it's very important for the team. That's where all the money is directed. It's managed by the basis of where the team finishes in the championship. And of course the drivers is a separate issue, but they have their pride and they want to win those drivers' championships, or come first and second rather, I should say, in their case. They're going to, well, now we've in this scenario where this relentless team and driver, Max Verstappen with Red Bull, are steadily making these strides into their lead, and that comfortable lead they used to have is just starting to fall apart. It's starting to look very vulnerable.
the shark attack is imminent.
Yeah, he's circling and dun, dun, dun.
Well, yeah, we'll get the sound effect, turn it into a jingle.
I'm not in the trumpet bit, whatever it is.
But that is the thing for Oscar Piastri in particular. He at the moment has the most to lose because he is leading the Drivers' Championship by 22 points, and you just wonder, is maybe the pressure also playing on him there? He's been off the podium for the last couple of races, didn't finish in Baku, fourth in Singapore. No, completely disagree, Damon.
No, I'm just saying, I'm agreeing 100%. Every driver thinks, how difficult could it be until they're there, in with a shout of winning a world championship. And every driver will tell you he's won a world championship. The first one is the hardest one. Once you cracked it, then it's like winning a Grand Prix. You're never going to know unless you've actually done it, and then everyone else knows you've done it. There's a pressure off once that's been achieved. But neither of these guys they've won Grand Prix, they've got pole positions, everyone knows they're a great driver, but they're not a world champion yet.
And we shouldn't underestimate the intensity of the environment that they're in and the intensity of the task at hand. Damon knows that very well. Formula One drivers who are in this kind of championship fight, you can see it on their faces. It wears on them. I saw it with you, Damon, in 1996.
No,
obviously.
not me. I was
never.
I was light-hearted and
you can't avoid it because the environment is so intense. The environment is so focused. Everyone is so small. It's a goldfish bowl, this sport, and every movement that you make is analysed, it's scrutinised by people like me. And
especially you. And many talking about people like you. There's no one like you, Andrew.
That felt quite pointed, Damon.
Let's not get into that story again.
No, we didn't. That's the next red flag. But you're absolutely spot on, and we do scrutinise that, and they do feel it in a world where everything is scrutinised, and whether you're a Formula One driver or not. The session's going to restart, by the way, in just over 2 minutes' time. Jenny, I believe you have a question.
I do, and I just wonder what you guys think of how good Max is at just putting the psychological pressure on everyone else. He's a master, isn't he, when it comes to championship wins on track, but actually he, I think, can get into the heads of the drivers better than anyone else on track. Thoughts?
Do you get a psychological advantage if you're Max Verstappen as well?
I think also, when you see those pictures of Max and Lando when Lando was a little puppy and they were karting and stuff, and you just think it's very difficult to get out of your head when you're younger and you're looking up to a superstar like Max, to actually consider yourself as capable of overthrowing that person. Max has never had any illusions that there's anybody in the world who could better him. I think that if he came up against Ayrton Senna, I think Max would take the view that he's not insurmountable, he's not unbeatable, and so there's that impervious. He has this. I used to say that Michael Schumacher looked imperious the whole time. He had this kind of impermeable, solid kind of persona, which defeated everyone even before they got to driving against him in a racing car.
I'm reminded, Damon, of one of my favourite quotes from you, actually. It was the beginning of 1994, and you were being asked what was it going to be like to face up to Ayrton Senna, and you said something like, what's he going to do, put me in a Vulcan mind vice?
Oh, yeah, yes, any of the Trekkies out there who watched the original series of Star Trek will remember it was the famous Vulcan mind grip, I think it was. Derek Nimoy, not Derek Nimoy.
Leonard.
It was another person.
Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy. Derek Nimoy was another person.
The thing is, actually, metaphorically, that is what happens. Everybody in Formula One knows. All the other drivers know. There are probably one or two don't agree with this. I think, but even someone like Fernando Alonso would tell you he thinks Max is above everybody else. And Fernando's someone who's not exactly overwhelmed with self-doubt, sorry, with self... yes, I've got that right, haven't I?
Yeah.
And so...
they're all confident. They've all got their confidence, but then in the back of their mind, they know that Max is doing everything that they like to be doing. And he's won 4 titles, he's nibbling away at Lewis's incredible record and breaking all these... he's got a chance of winning his 7th US Grand Prix, and that would make him an all-time overall winner of the US Grand Prix, and he's knocking off all these titles, and they envy that. They look at him and they want to emulate that, and they haven't even started yet. Neither of these guys have won a title.
Yeah, and those results have come through extremely high levels of performance and relentlessness on an extremely consistent level. He just does not get things wrong. He's never has an off day. Very rarely see him make misjudgments. Occasionally he has a red mist, like he had with George Russell in Spain, for example, earlier this year. But those are few and far between. And when he's in this sort of situation, he's impervious, and they know that, and that creates doubt in their own minds about themselves and whether they're impervious, which they know they're not, as we've seen from Norris and now Piastri this year.
I feel like we could debate this all day long, or indeed just enjoy this conversation, but there is a qualifying session happening as well.
Fan conversation, isn't it, that goes on forever?
Well, we'll save it for a Checkered Flag podcast, Damon. Right, the session is underway. 30 minutes and 23, 22, 21 seconds. Slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated. Of course, Hadjar will be out, and that might well save somebody who would otherwise find themselves on the exit. But I tell you what, it's going to be a bit tight for some of the drivers to get a second run in, I think, because they're having to make time and find time, being very slow on the pit lane exit. Nico Hülkenberg was first out in the Sauber, of course, was involved in that turn 1 collision with the sprint, and he's just now starting his first flying lap on the soft tyre. Still a mix of drivers in the pits, including both McLaren drivers. One was in the pit lane ready to go out. Oscar Piastri was still in the garage. So Hamilton and Tsunoda also making their way out. Verstappen has just emerged now. This is the sound of Hülkenberg making his way through the S's. Right, left, then right again through turn 6. The right-hander leads you into the left hand of 7. Just before that, that's where Hadjar had his off. Then it starts to slow down. You head uphill over the left hand of the left side turn of turn 9, over the crest at 10, downhill. Bit of traffic in front of him, gets nicely out of the way as he hits the braking zone into the left-hander of turn 11, and will hit the DRS button when the line comes. Will give him about half a tenth of a second advantage in a straight line down towards turn 12. Pick your braking point as perfectly as you can. Hülkenberg is really flying through the gates in practice yesterday, followed that up with 4th in sprint quali today. So let's keep an eye on Hülkenberg and see what he can do in this qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, he got a time or half a lap in, so he's lost a set of tyres in that first run when the yellow flag came up, the session stopped because of Hadjar's crash. But so he's got 11 minutes. He might just get another one in. As we're watching a lot of dust and sort of smoke coming up from the back of his car as he's grounding, that car is running very low indeed, and it's the skid plates are touching the ground and kicking up a lot of dust. So he will get a dirty track, but he's got a time on the board, which is a bit of relief for Nico.
Yeah, it's a 1:34.355. Gabriel Bortoleto crosses the line, goes second, a few tenths adrift of his teammate. This is the sound of Carlos Sainz, finished 3rd in the sprint earlier on, has of course been on pole here in the past for Ferrari back in 2022. Didn't manage to convert that into the win, of course, and then he bails out of it and comes into the pits. And is called over to the weighbridge as well, so that's going to cost him even more time. Everybody out there then, with the exception of Albon, Sainz and no Isaac Hadjar, who crashed on his first lap, and the French rookie is now out of this session. Oliver Behrman pops in a time to split the Saubers, and the Haas man goes second with a 1:34.4 as Max Verstappen now makes his way down through turn 2 and into those high-speed S's as the sun glints off that Red Bull and picks up a bit of dust as well as it bumps over the tarmac at turns 4 and 5.
That is the plank at the bottom of the car, Harry. Yeah, that smoke, you can tell it's very distinctive. It's the colour of the plank. It comes out from the back of the car, and they're running this. They've had this problem of being able to run low. It makes the car very, very unstable as he misses the apex of that last corner. No, that's turn 11, I think. Anyway,
yeah, turn 11,
yeah, so the back straight. So he went deep on that one, but the car is nailed, and they're running it very low. And when you hit the deck, of course, it unloads the tyres as well, apart from anything else, because it's running on the bottom of the chassis. It's not actually, the tyres are not being pressed onto the road by the weight of the downforce of the car and the car itself. So it can be very upsetting when you run that low. But eventually it wears a little bit of the plank off and just gives you a little bit more clearance. But if it wears too much, then you'll be disqualified.
through the triple right-hander for Max Verstappen. The left-hand flick of 19 comes very easily pinged for track limits on the exit there. Verstappen keeps all four wheels within the white line, slows it down for the final corner out through turn 20. The line will come, and he goes fastest, a 1:33.590.
I tell you what, it's worth making a point here. Fernando Alonso is second fastest at the moment in the Aston Martin. He qualified sixth, remember, for the sprint. He's only 0.15 behind that first lap from Verstappen, and he's ahead of both Mercedes. So Aston Martin, I was speaking to them between the sessions, they were hopeful that they could repeat the good performance, but not really that optimistic that they would. So that's quite a promising start for him, although Charles Leclerc has now gone fastest in the Ferrari.
And this is the sound of Oscar Piastri turning through corner 11. Best qualifying here of 5th last year. Raced his way to 5th as well, but was a few tenths adrift with his teammate Lando Norris in sprint qualifying yesterday. So feeling the need to find pace is Oscar Piastri. He'll try and put what happened in the sprint earlier on today behind him. It's a little bit scrappy at the end of the backstretch going into turn 12. Has to navigate a bit of traffic as well. Not lighting up the sector times at the moment. Fastest first sector goes to Max Verstappen. Fastest in the middle sector is George Russell. Charles Leclerc at the moment fastest in the final sector. Leclerc has actually just gone fastest with a 1:33.5, 65 thousandths of a second clear of Verstappen. Hamilton's popped the second Ferrari up into third. They'll be looking to make up for their disastrous performance in sprint qualifying yesterday. Piastri to the line then. It's only 5th.
Yeah, it used to be that they had such an advantage that they didn't really have to push that hard in Q1 because they had, and we're watching a replay of Lando, I think, going very deep on turn 1 on his run. I was going to say...
this is live, Damien. That wasn't a replay. That was not the way Lando Norris wanted to start. I think his flying lap.
I think it's a replay. But he's pushing very hard. But these two drivers, don't forget, they missed out this morning because they didn't race. So they are catching up. They're trying to get a feel for their car again. They haven't had the experience.
Lando Norris nearly losing it over the crest at turn 10. Yeah. He was already nearly 4 tenths down in sector 1. Surely you abandon this lap now. He's not going to find any pace there. But that looked tricky for Lando Norris in sector 1.
You can see, and now also, I think that Isaac Hadjar will be watching that and going, well, maybe I wasn't so unlucky. You know, that was the wind is coming from behind at those corners through the first 5 to 6 corners, 2 to 9, and it does make it very tail-happy. We saw Lando have a biggest moment through this switchback section of the circuit. Very lucky to have saved that.
Worth noting, Leclerc then went top on new tyres. Verstappen's were used, I think, between those two. So Verstappen on that run, they've now come back to the pits. We'll just get another look at Lando Norris almost losing that McLaren and then having to bail out of it. So he will have to go again, but those tyres now will be a little worse for wear. In the drop zone currently, Franco Colapinto in the Alpine, Alex Albon in the Williams, Gabriel Bortoleto Sauber, Lando Norris, no lap time on the board, and Isaac Hadjar, who of course crashed at the start of this session, so he will be definitely eliminated. But for Norris, well, it's time to get a move on, really, and he's going to stay out there and have another go at it. This is the sound of the British driver who sits second in the championship, 22 points behind his teammate Lando Norris. The DRS is open. He rises up towards turn 1, big red through the left-hander, downhill it plunges through elements of Suzuka as it S's through the first sector, high speed, left, right and left like maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone as the sun beats off that papaya McLaren, and hopefully a better first sector. It's better than the last time around. He's up on time to get through into Q2, but he'll be wanting to try and eke out a little bit more. It's close for comfort at the moment for Lando Norris.
Pressure on McLaren, isn't it? I mean, you can see this run of kind of misfortune they seem to be having. It is really starting to show. They're putting themselves in situations where they have to deliver, and Lando here has done the right thing by carrying on, but those tyres have already had the best taken out of them, so he's got to get this right. It has to be a very neat lap to get himself through out of Q1.
Through turn 12, through the packed grandstands, and he finds time fastest of anybody in the middle sector, so better middle sector for Lando Norris as he heads through the stadium section with elements of Istanbul Park, now through the triple right-hander through 16, 17 and 18, holding on to the car for dear life before you swing it through the left Watch out for track limits on the exit. The pit lane entry is to your left. He stays towards turn number 20 through the left-hander. He flies out of the corner, but he's only 7th fastest. He's 3/10 away from Charles Leclerc's current fastest time. That puts Stroll down into the elimination zone, along with Colapinto, Albon and Bortoleto. Hadjar as well as out of this one, and we've got queuing in the pit lane again, but we are getting we're getting a bit too close for comfort, Damon.
Well, I'm just watching Lando's having to do a slow lap now to get back to the pits, and he will have time, but it's going to be extremely tight for him to get a second run, and all these guys behind him managed to improve, which is likely. Then I'm wondering whether his time is going to be vulnerable, but what do you think, Andrew?
Well, I'm trying to work out what's going on with tyres at the moment, because if that was Norris's second set, he doesn't really want to have another set to get through Q1. That would be his third set out of 6. And you want a new set, 2 new sets for Q3, and at least 1 new set for Q2. But I'm not completely sure that I trust the timing screens at the moment, because it's telling me that his first run was done on used tyres, which doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No, it does. Well, I think when it says used tyres, I think maybe he went into 1 lap and then they stopped the session, so he actually his first run was the same set as he started the session on.
Well, I don't know. It's just the symbol's just a bit confusing, because it says the very first lap, i.e. the one before the shunt was used tyres, but then the second one it was showing new. But anyway, we'll see over the course of the next 2 minutes 45 seconds whether Lando does need to do another run or not, because they are looking a bit shaky. Also worth saying, actually, he's only just behind Piastri, even though Piastri got a run on the new tyres first off, and Norris had to do a run with slightly used tyres after that incident at turn 9 and 10.
Let's have a look at Mercedes. I wonder how much track evolution is going to be a factor to watch out for in this qualifying session 2. But Mercedes have just gone first and second. George Russell ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Did Kimi Antonelli have a little moment at turn 10? Very similar to Lando Norris, but not quite as aggravated. Managed to hold the car as the rear end stepped out of him. Yuki Tsunoda's still struggling out there. He's just gone 10th fastest. Max Verstappen back out on the track in the other Red Bull. He's currently 4th fastest, just over 2.5 tenths adrift from George Russell. 1 minute and 50 on the clock to go in this first part of qualifying ahead of Sunday's US Grand Prix. Better from Verstappen in the middle sector. Personal best for the Dutchman as he slows it right down into the tight left-hander of turn 15 and gears up for the triple right-handers of 16, 17 and 18. Verstappen at the moment in 4th, but finding time. Stroll, Colapinto, Albon, Bortoleto, the ones at risk. The 2 Hasses right on the periphery as well. Let's see what this does for Verstappen. Fastest of anybody in the final sector and goes to the top of the standings. The 10th clear of George Russell. But time's improving and perhaps the track ramping up as well.
And that time by Max Verstappen was better than we saw from Lando Norris yesterday in P1. But so the track is definitely coming good, but don't forget we've had a race on it already, and we had also some cars running in another race in between the sprint and the current qualifying session, so the track should be pretty clean anyway.
Bortoleto crosses the line, only goes 14th. Hulkenberg, once again, is showing pace. He's up there in 4th at the moment, mixing it with the top guns. The man who's been out-qualified, I think he was out-qualified, went on a run of 7 consecutive qualifyings where he was beaten by his rookie teammate. Hulkenberg and this track gelling at the moment. Ocon improves but can't get out of the elimination zone with 20 seconds on the clock. Lawson's at risk as well, so too Colapinto and Alex Albon in the Williams. The other Williams of Carlos Sainz is up in 7th, so Albon needs to find the time here, and his teammate is going even quicker. Fastest of anybody in the first sector was Carlos Sainz, but that's just been taken away by the other Williams of Alex Albon. Gasly, what a time from the Alpine. He's up into 7th. The sound you're hearing is the other Alpine of Franco Colapinto, who was out-qualified his teammate Pierre Gasly in 4 out of the last 5 qualifyings. Can he do it another time? No, he won't. He takes the checker flag, which is out. It's 15th. He's still very much at risk because Albon is absolutely flying in the Williams. Fastest of anybody in the first sector. Will get the second sector split in just a few seconds time. Tsunoda pits from 14th. He's at risk as well. If anybody else can improve, he might might just get away with it though, because Bortoletto's not improving, neither is Esteban Ocon. Lance Stroll as well looks to be out of this one, so I think Franco Colapinto is going to find himself knocked out, because Albon is finding improvements all throughout the lap. Personal best in the middle sector. No other big names at risk. Piastri and Norris only 11th and 12th at the end of this session, but they have the buffer round the final corner for the Thai driver, who started inside the top 10, and he pops himself up into 8th spot, and that puts Colapinto down and out in Q1, along with Gabriel Bortoletto in the Sauber, Esteban Ocon's Haas, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, and Isaac Hadjar with no time on the board, having crashed out at the start of the session.
Yeah, we're a little bit concerned about Albon's, was it Albon at the last we saw, and he actually...
Track limits.
Yeah, track limits, I'm afraid. Well, we'll have a look at that later.
It has been deleted. The time for Alex Albon deleted for track limits, so that will put Colapinto through and up into Q2.
Okay, sorry about that. That's probably was the slight risk with this setup that we chose.
The radio messages are always slightly delayed, and what they always do at a track where we have track limits issues is where they will sit in the car and wait to see if there's any penalties applied, but they don't need to wait too much longer because the lap time has been deleted, and Alex Albon finds himself out of qualifying and will start right at the back of the grid on Grand Prix Sunday. So Alex Albon, unfortunately, not having the best run at the moment when it comes to qualifying. He qualified 13th for Azerbaijan, 14th in Singapore, and while he was quick in the sprint quali, his teammate is up and through in the higher echelons of the top 10. Albon finds himself out.
Yes, it's a little bit... I mean, well, we've got some good news, or Colapinto's got some good news to come. He gets another run.
Alpine, Gasly was quick in sprint qualifying as well, and we're going to get another look at where it was for turn 15. Just had a little bit. Alex Albon running wide on the exit, and that was all it did.
Wasn't even the corner we talked about, was it, Damon?
No.
Full corner. Turn 15. Can you take us away for that way front face the run?
He's claiming he's innocent, but I think he went off at the last corner. Watching a replay now of Lance Stroll as well, we're getting more examples of track limits as they go through the people who are at risk, and they are probably going to delete a few more lap times by the looks of things.
Yeah, I think that was a deleted lap from Stroll, just looking back through the race control messages. They will wait in the cars for as long as they can to see if there are any late deletions or any ones that are reapplied. Incident involving Norris and Antonelli. That's the maximum delta time, so that's always the case in qualifying when they're all trying to be as slow as possible coming out of the pit lane. So then a bit of a reprieve for Franco Colapinto, who does get through, both Alpines through and up into Q2. So they'll be pleasantly pleased with how their weekend is going so far, actually. Gasly was up inside the top 10 for a short while during sprint qualifying. So finding a little something are Alpine this weekend. Gasly, 7 Q3 appearances so far this year, but none in the last 6 Grand Prix. He's not completed a lap higher than 15th in the last 2 Grand Prix for the Frenchman.
Well, they've got another chance. So this is always, it's always. I think I'm just looking at. I'm actually looking at Albon and thinking, God, it was Carlos that had all the bad luck in the early part of the season. And it's funny how it swings, it pendulums. It seems to go from one person to the next within a garage. That was a bit of bad luck. But of course, I think a lot of people were caught out by the fact that they stopped the first run. So the runs were under pressure, and they were probably just overdoing it and not really properly prepared for the clean lap they needed. But of course, that you can't apply that because Max Verstappen, it's the same for everyone. And both Mercedes, again, are very interestingly quite quick there. Comfortably at the moment, but of course it's only the first run Q1, so we're going to see a little bit more pressure on all the drivers and a little bit more of what they're capable of doing in Q2, which is coming up.
Yeah, 4:36 local time, so just a couple of minutes when we get Q2 underway, but we will not have Gabriel Bortoletto Sauber. Back-to-back Q1 eliminations for the Brazilian driver in Singapore and in the USA. Esteban Ocon out, SQ1 and Q1 eliminations, down in 17th. That is Lance Stroll's 13th Q1 elimination of the season, the most of any driver, down in 18th, and with his lap time deleted. Would have put him through to Q2 if he hadn't exceeded track limits. Alex Albon in 19th. Hadjar out in 20th, crashed on his first flying lap. That is his second career Q1 elimination, so it's not too bad for the rookie Frenchman. Jenny, down to you.
Yeah, just on Lance Stroll, he will have a 5-place grid penalty tomorrow for the incident that happened in the sprint race when he took out was it
Esteban Ocon?
Thank you. I knew it was one of the Hatters. And he has 2 points added to his licence. He's just come into the pen. I'm sure he'll be very happy to see me. Not.
Good luck with that one. We'll get this session underway in less than 40 seconds time. Slight improvements then for Ferrari, who I think will be boosted by that Q1 performance compared to this time yesterday, but the sun's still very much shining here in Texas. Air temperature 34 degrees, track temperature 45.6 degrees, and really this circuit of the Americas track providing great challenge for all of, well, now the 15 remaining drivers. You have that dramatic elevation up towards turn 1 before the track dives and dances through the high-speed S's and bends inspired by Suzuka and Silverstone circuits. It can be brutal as well, though, that hard stop into turn 12 off the back of that long back straight. Really a track where you need good top speed for those straights, but also strong braking and mid-corner grip in the technical sectors as well. And the clock is now counting down for Q2.
Yeah, I'm going to need probably a steering wheel swap for the next run. The whole left grip's come off.
Okay, we'll sort that out.
So the left grip on Lando Norris's steering wheel, I'm presuming that's on there to aid with a bit of the tactileness of it. That's the word. For Norris has come off, and we'll have to come back in for a change for comfort reasons.
A little bit like, it's no good if you've got the thing you're holding on to is sliding around under your hand. So he's got a little bit of this a challenge there for this run, and it's worth noting that in that the first qualifying run that they did, both McLarens were within less than 0.3 of a second of being knocked out. That's what we're talking about. The margins are terrifyingly small. You can't afford to go and just do they used to have the advantage of a car that they could go out and they'd guarantee if they half pushed it would easily get through. And then now they're under pressure. I'm sure they're going to get it all back on course again in this next session. But it's signs of the team and the drivers feeling the weight of that World Championship getting heavier and heavier in their hands.
So sure, whilst that's certainly a factor, is it also to do with, is this McLaren losing a bit of performance in comparison to their rivals? We know Red Bull was still bringing a few upgrades. Mercedes have brought a few tweaks this weekend as well. Andrea Stella was very public in the fact that they've turned off the taps for this year's car, and it's all focused on 2026. And is that costing them in this last quarter?
Yeah, and we've seen Red Bull have managed to do this before, where we have this cost cap and we have resource restrictions as well, and that's the better you do. So if you Constructors' Championship previous year, as McLaren were, you lose out on development, and then it's harder for you to squeeze more out of the current car, and then you've got resources you need to put on this incredible challenge for next year's new regulations. And of course, Red Bull seem to be able to keep on piling on performance right through to the end of the year, and I think other teams have done the same. But I do think it is more difficult now for McLaren to maintain their dominance that they started the season with. But then there's good reason for that. I mean, it could be they're up against the ceiling of everything, and they can't do it.
Well, it will certainly be a point of focus for everybody, but we're into Q2 now. 12 minutes and 16 seconds on the clock. We're currently watching Kimi Antonelli on his first flying lap on the soft tyre, the 19-year-old Italian who will be a Mercedes driver next year. That was the big news coming into this weekend. Both him and his teammate George Russell continuing into 2026 and perhaps beyond that as well. But has had a better run of form recently as Kimi Antonelli after a bit of a dreadful European leg. Has qualified in the top 4 and finished in the top 5 in the last 2 Grand Prix. So finding that confidence again is Kimi Antonelli, and he's faster than his teammate George Russell through the first sector on this opening lap in Q2.
Yeah, he's starting to show a little bit more confidence, self-belief. I think it's an awful lot to learn in a season of Formula 1. You come into Formula 1 as a rookie, then the learning curve, even if you've done lots of preparation, I just saw him look like it, make a track limits breach there, but we'll probably no doubt hear about that if he has actually reached that. Again, looks like he's using up too much for...
It's pushing, isn't it?
Yeah,
pushing right to the edge.
But I mean, he's got definitely on the last corner. He's overstretched himself, but we'll see where that time stands, whether he's going to get it deleted. But anyway, other than that, I was going to say he's showing confidence. You know, he's showing a little bit more commitment, and he's settling into F1 as fulfilling all the expectations. Watching a little bit of correction there from George Russell in the last corner.
Yeah, and kind of backing off pretty much just across the line. Only third fastest. Behrman splits the 2 Mercedes. Carlos Sainz is flying at the moment, fastest of anybody in the first sector. Antonelli still fastest in the middle sector. That lap holding up for the time being. Everybody out on the track, everybody on the soft rubber as well. Worth remembering that Pirelli have brought an extra step between the hard, medium and soft pairing this weekend. It's mainly for the Grand Prix to try and encourage more than one stop. See if we can get some diversity when it comes to the strategic options. Maybe just trying to make that hard one-stop strategy slow enough to encourage the use of maybe a soft and a medium tyre with a 2-stop strategy on the board. Carlos Sainz, that lap just not quite going fastest compared to Antonelli. Less than a tenth though separating Sainz from the top right now. It's Antonelli, Sainz, Behrman in third, Lawson, Russell the top 5. The 2 Alpines are Gasly and Colapinto 7th and 8th, as Fernando Alonso pops himself up into third. This is the sound of Lando Norris, who's fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Max Verstappen though is fastest of anybody in the first sector. Oscar Piastri is in the middle sector at the moment, so we'll wait and see what the Australian has. But these now are becoming our 3 championship protagonists. Lando Norris crosses the line first. He goes fastest by over a tenth and a half, a 1:32.876. Max Verstappen will be next across the line, and he pips Norris by over a tenth and a half, a 1:32.701, whilst Oscar Piastri is setting personal best times but isn't challenging Max Verstappen's pace right now. He needs a mighty final sector. Can he get on par with his teammate Lando Norris though? Oscar Piastri coming through towards the left-hand flick of turn 19. The roller coaster rides that surround this track in the distance still being built, some of them, through the final corner as the sun shines on the papaya McLaren of Piastri. It's not shining enough though for the Australian, who finishes half a second down on that run and only 5th place.
That is a little bit more, it shows a little bit of maybe a pressure coming into play. We've got another run for them to do, of course, in this session, because Charles Leclerc goes second now. But I mean, I think Lando is definitely safe where he is, but this is getting to the more difficult part of qualifying, to a little bit of backing off the pace, and you're suddenly vulnerable as Hamilton now goes up to 4th and is right behind Lando Norris, but ahead of Antonelli, who was quickest at one time, and that time is stood, I believe, or time was deleted. Hang on a minute.
Gasly's had a couple of lap times deleted,
Gasly, okay.
And Franco Colapinto made a mistake, nearly had a big crash like Isaac Hadjar did in Q1, just managed to save it but ended up losing a huge chunk of time, and Gasly's time all went away from him out of the final corner, tried to correct it, had no grip and ended up running well wide and losing time. Anyway, Yuki Tsunoda, did he have an issue as well? Let's hear from him.
Lawson is disturbing me in purpose, like slowing down like her in corners.
Yeah, I saw that turn 11.
Yuki Tsunoda saying Liam Lawson is disturbing me on purpose. Of course, if you need reminding, Liam Lawson was the Red Bull driver in the first 2 races of the year, replaced by Yuki Tsunoda, who hasn't exactly fared particularly well during his tenure at that team either. And is there something a little more going on there?
Yeah, well, it used to be maybe Liam Lawson who was pushing to get that seat, and it goes around in circles all the time with Red Bull, isn't it? Who is going to get that number 2 seat at Red Bull in the main team, because they're all part of the same operation, the famous fizzy drink organisation. So Tsunoda actually, he still has to push. He has to beat Lawson. Neither of them are actually through into the top 10 in this session anyway, so they've got one more go to sort themselves out.
Well, talking of Red Bull drivers, we obviously don't have Isaac Hadjar in this session, having crashed out of Q1. Jenny was speaking to him a few moments ago. Jenny, what did you glean from Isaac?
He's not a very happy man, I can glean that much. I can't actually play back what he said because there are a swear word in there, but he's not happy with life. He knows that the car can go fast and he just messed it up, and when a driver makes a mistake and it is a driver error, I think it's very hard for them, and he's bitterly disappointed. He knows that car is good, and if he had a couple more laps, what could he have done with that car? But unfortunately it wasn't to be. He is a rookie. This is the first time he's taken to the track here and raced here and tried to qualify for a Grand Prix here. And I think it's easy to forget that because of the path that he's gone on this year. But he is bitterly disappointed and very hard on himself as well.
Still just 21 years old is the Parisian, Isaac Hadjar, but he is the 5th youngest podium scorer in Formula One history. So it's been an exceptional rookie year, has it, for Hadjar, and the rumours continue to swirl around whether he will step up next year and be Max Verstappen's latest teammate. Everybody in the pits right now, with the exception of George Russell, who is on an outlap at the moment, so running a little out of sequence.
Yeah, did he have a lap time deleted? He'd be at the bottom of the list, it was that. So George is under a little bit of pressure. He's got one more run, we've got 5 minutes left, but George has not managed to maintain that. We got used to seeing him up in the top 3 or 4. But he's slipped back, and now he's got to get himself a good lap, a good clean lap, and that's probably why he's gone out early. And let's hope he doesn't collect all the cars that are now going to be coming onto the track and going slowly.
Right now, Lawson, Russell, Tsunoda, Colapinto and Gasly all very much need to go again if they hope to make it through into Q3. The top 10 is Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, Hamilton, Antonelli. Then it comes Sainz, Piastri, Alonso, Behrman and Nico Hülkenberg as they now all start to file out of the pit lane for these final runs. George Russell with a little bit of clear track in front of him. He'll have a Sauber to negotiate, but Sauber's just come out of the pit lane, so hopefully it gets well out of the way. It does as he approaches the S's. Russell then through the left, hits the right, left again, then it curves slightly longer for the Mercedes man through the right as you try and hang on like a roller coaster ride through sector 1. He's a 10th up on Nico Hülkenberg's time for 10th, rises over the crest at turn 10, then heads slightly downhill, does the silver arrow. Pick your braking point, chuck it into the left-hander, line the car up straight, wait for the sound in your ear to hit the button for the DRS, the drag reduction system. The rear wing flap opens to give the driver 0.5 of a second advantage in a straight line, and it will be all focus on the apex of turn 12. Hits the brakes, slings it into the left-hander. Don't run out too wide for George Russell. Controls a slide nicely. Now it starts to concertina up through 13 and 14. Off camber braking into the left-hander of turn 15. George Russell controlling that Mercedes nicely. He's on course to make it through into the top 10, but not by much. He needs to find a bit more time here in this final sector towards the penultimate corner through turn 19. One more to go for George Russell with less than 3 minutes on the clock. Running out of sequences, the Mercedes man. He improves, but it's only enough for 5th and still slower, 6th I should say, and still slower than Kimi Antonelli's first lap time on the soft tyres.
Yeah, that was a little bit under pressure, that lap. You could see him slinging the car around. It was drifting quite a bit, so that's where you lose a lot of time. You can't afford to do that, but he had to get a good lap in, and he can't complain about traffic, even though he encountered a few slow cars. But I think he lost a little bit of time with going through the very fast left-right section of the early part of the lap with a super fast part of the circuit where he had to make a little bit of a compromise for Nico Hülkenberg.
Yuki Tsunoda is another man who continues to have to soak up pressure with every session that goes by. He is 0.08 of a second up on Behrman, who is now 10th, but Tsunoda will be wanting to try and find a bit more time than that. Well, the 25-year-old from Tokyo has scored points in 3 of his 4 races here at the Circuit of the Americas, but has a best qualifying of 10th from 2021 and 2024. Last year, he qualified just outside the top 10 in 11th. And he is currently the lowest scoring Red Bull driver in the championship between the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 Racing Bulls. And he's down on time in the middle sector. It's fine margins, but this is not enough for Yuki Tsunoda when his teammate Max Verstappen is flying and at the top at the moment, still in the pits, having unfortunately got their qualifying all wrong yesterday between driver and team in sprint qualifying. The team and Laurent Mekies, the team principal, even apologising to Yuki Tsunoda, and he runs out wide on the exit of turn 19. I'll be surprised if that's not track limits. He crosses the line, he doesn't improve anyway. From sector 1 after that, it just fell away for Tsunoda with a minute on the clock. I can't see Tsunoda going through. He stays 13th. Antonelli's flying in the middle sector, fastest of anybody. Hulkenberg doesn't improve. He's 11th. Where is Kimi Antonelli? No, it falls away from him as well. Has the track reached a certain point and now is falling away from the drivers?
Something's happened. Alonso hasn't improved. Antonelli hasn't improved. Hulkenberg only just improved. Tsunoda didn't improve. It looks like the track has got slower all of a sudden for some reason.
I think if they don't improve on their first few sectors, they get a feeling for whether or not they're going to improve, and then eventually they just throw in the towel. It looked to me like Yuki Tsunoda just knew he wasn't going to improve, so he just was throwing the car across the track limits, and he will have it deleted anyway, but it was slower than his previous time, so they are where they are.
I wonder if the wind's changed slightly for the drivers out there. Colapinto is up on his own personal best right now, but I don't think Colapinto will trouble the top 10. Pierre Gasly out there as well, the 2 Alpine drivers desperate to try and salvage something from the rest of their season. They're currently sitting right at the bottom of the Constructors' Championship. The checkered flag is out then. The clock is counted down to 0. Behrman's taken the flag. He's the last one that could be bumped out here, but I think he should be safe. Colapinto crosses the line in 14th. It's all on Pierre Gasly now. Can he find something in these last couple of corners? Lewis Hamilton's out there again as well, but he's safe up in 4th right now. The pink, blue and yellow for this weekend's Alpine of Gasly does improve, but only enough to go 14th, just ahead of his teammate Colapinto. The 2 Alpines propping up the rear of the field, and whilst Hamilton is still out there, he will be safe, and we will lose Nico Hulkenberg in 11th, Liam Lawson in 12th, Tsunoda 13th, Pierre Gasly 14th, and Franco Colapinto 15th and out of this one.
Well, that is the first top 10 within half a second of each other. So we've sorted out who the top 10 are going to be, but now it's the main meat of, or the main business, if you like, of qualifying is to sort out who is going to be on pole position and where they are going to start, where they're going to start for the Grand Prix itself. And it's not entirely easy to spot exactly who's going to win. I mean, I think Max is clearly in good shape. I'm watching a replay of Ollie Behrman, who had a wobbly moment going through the tricky part of the circuit, turn 5 or 6, and, where we've seen quite a few drivers come unstuck. I think he was slightly put off by a car that was going slowly on the outside. We're watching a Nico Hulkenberg replay, and he just slung it through turn 19 and ran wide. But I think, as I said, I think he probably knew it wasn't going to be his time anyway.
No, the track just seemingly falling away on those final laps with very few improvements. Ollie Behrman with a good job to hold on to 10th. He reaches Q3 in consecutive races for the first time in his career, and Haas do have an upgrade for this weekend. They brought new bits to the floor, the rear corner and the side pod, so perhaps those working for Ollie Behrman with this small upgrade package. But again, they are also trying to pick off as many points as they can, because they're in this fight for 6th in the Constructors' Championship, but they're in 9th. So they really are. They're 9 points behind Sauber, who are 13 points behind Aston Martin, who are only 4 points behind Racing Bulls. So it's a really tight midfield.
And Ollie's been performing well, I think, this weekend here. But I'd say something's happened with Ferrari. If that form is anything to go by, they seem to have found a little bit of pace. But as we can't go on any of this until the proof of the pudding is Q3, is the actual attempt to get those results, because you don't know if they're running full. Well, they've got to run their engine modes, haven't they, all through the session, so they can't change it anymore. But they used it up and down with engine modes and various things like that. But we'll sort out what the grid is going to be, and we'll find out what the true pace is in a few moments.
I think this is one of the most unpredictable Q3s for a while. I think Verstappen is going to get pole position, but where is Piastri? He's not looked quick all qualifying. Can he recover? The Ferraris look surprisingly quick after being terrible yesterday. They've been good through qualifying, through this qualifying so far. The Mercedes are a bit up and down. Fernando Alonso's shown pace at times, but then faded again. I really wouldn't want to call what the order of the grid is behind Verstappen.
Yeah.
But I think he is very much the one to beat.
Max Verstappen certainly seems the favourite right now. Q3 will start at 4:59 local time, so just less than 5 minutes away for that one while we get the track prepared once again. The grandstand's absolutely packed throughout the course of this weekend. Now, Yuki Tsunoda has apparently been complaining about something on the radio, and was it to do with getting rather close to an Alpine coming into turn 15?
Hey, Papa, what the is that guy?
Yeah, we'll look into that. We'll look into that blocking.
Hey, just rookie, bro.
So Tsunoda not happy then by being blocked by one of the Alpines, or feeling like he was blocked by one of the Alpines. Tsunoda finding himself out of this one. Hulkenberg 11th, qualifies there for the third time this season. Still yet to have a top 10 start in a Grand Prix is Nico Hulkenberg. Liam Lawson 12th, the Racing Bulls driver, misses Q3 for only the second time in the last 7 races. Yuki Tsunoda 13th, starting in that position for the second consecutive Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly 14th, out-qualifies Colapinto for the first time in 4 Grand Prix. And Franco Colapinto, his highest start since Hungary is P15. That was 5 races ago, as we now go in to the fight for pole position and the top 10. But less than 3 minutes away, let's check back in with Jenny Gap.
Yes, and when I was speaking to Lewis Hamilton slightly earlier on today, he was saying that he felt quite pleased with how his sprint went. Understandably, he finished very well in 4th place, but also that he can recognise that when it comes to the tyres, they have this issue that they're not able to switch them on for the final part of qualifying. So they go out in Q1 and Q2, do all right. And then when it finally gets to P3, they just can't seem to get those tyres performing as well as everybody else. They'll be fascinating to see if they can keep their places where they are, roughly, from Q2 to through Q3, or if we see this slipping away again.
Yeah, that's an interesting point there, Jenny. You're right. It does look sometimes like when it comes to the final test that Ferrari just haven't got that last little bit. As also happens in the race, they just don't seem to have that little bit extra. And I do get the feeling that McLaren have got the bit of extra at the moment, but they're not able to fulfil it. They've been tripping over themselves a bit. But both drivers are really under pressure now. They want to beat Max Verstappen. I was talking to Adam Norris, and I said, well done, Lando did well yesterday. He said, no, we didn't do well enough, because they're looking over their shoulder or looking ahead of them, and there's Max Verstappen. So they know their ambition is to be on the front row. They want to get back to where they were. Both McLarens on the front row, but Max is the spoiler here. But again, Ferrari, it would be great to see them get in the fight. As you rightly say, Andrew, that Mercedes are up and down all over the place, aren't they? They're sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not, but they could be in the mix too.
Yeah, and Verstappen was saying after the sprint that he felt they had to improve the car to beat the McLarens. He was genuinely worried about McLaren having the pace to compete with Red Bull, but it really hasn't looked so far in this session that they're in their league, frankly. But as I say, it's been a slightly odd session. It's been a bit fractured with the crash at the beginning and people in different runs at different times, mistakes here and there. I don't think we've seen the full picture yet, but Verstappen just has that sort of sense of imperiousness about him today, I think. I think he's going to be hard to beat.
It's more important to get it right than this in this session than it is to necessarily go for the fastest lap time you've ever done, because I just feel at the moment McLaren particularly, they're just not getting it all together. Those drivers are distracted slightly. Max, as we know, he can deliver under the most immense pressure, and he can do it time and time again. And I do think that the car itself has improved. They've definitely found something he likes in their setup, whether it's an aerodynamic thing, they've changed the front wing. So they found something that is to his liking. With Ferrari, their issue is always braking. This is not a braking circuit. It's mostly high to medium speed corner circuit, where most of the time you're spending changing left to right and changing direction. There's only a couple of big brakes, but there's a lot of drag on the car as well. They've got quite a bit downforce. But I think that McLaren, it's going to be interesting to see which one of these drivers manages to clear their head and get it right in this session.
We're underway. Q3 is go. The green light is on at the end of the pit lane. Cue the screams from the grandstands. Antonelli, Russell, Piastri, Behrman, the first out onto the track. Soft tyres, the order of the day. Air temperature just under 34 degrees. Track temperature just over 44 degrees on a weekend where a heat hazard has been declared once again following Singapore as well. Cooling vests in use. Well, indeed, Kimi Antonelli has been struggling with his cooling vest, actually making him hotter so far this weekend. So I'm not sure if his one will be connected in this qualifying session. You don't have to wear the vest. If you don't wear the vest, you don't gain any kind of advantage. You still have to have all the tubing and elements attached and carry ballast to make up for it as well. But here we go then. This is the chance for pole position. But can anyone really try and challenge Max Verstappen, the reigning champion, who has looked superb in every session so far? The lone Red Bull stands out amongst the sea of McLarens, Ferraris and Mercedes. Can a midfield runner spring a surprise? Carlos Sainz in the Williams has been looking quick so far this weekend, and never rule out the wily old fox of Fernando Alonso. We've got the rookie Ollie Behrman in there as well for the American team. Haas giving those home supporters something to smile about as Max Verstappen emerges from the pit lane, rises uphill towards turn one with the stars and stripes, the gigantic flag of the United States of America flapping in the wind, overlooking almost the entirety of this circuit. Oscar Piastri heads that way now. The championship leader, under pressure, hasn't quite found his rhythm so far this weekend. Hits the apex of turn one and sends on his way for his opening flying lap. Through the S's for Oscar Piastri. The sun glints off the chrome and papaya McLaren for this weekend. Slightly tweaked livery for the 2025 Constructors Champions, taking the crown last time out in Singapore. Oscar Piastri's been a few tenths adrift of his own teammate this weekend, involved in that collision in the sprint race yesterday as well. Needs a clean, needs a fast qualifying, but he misses the apex at turn 11, runs wide, losing a whole heap of time, which will just slow him down all the way towards turn 12. That back straight, he'll get the aid of the DRS, tries to get a bit of a tow from Max Verstappen, but doesn't really succeed too much. Out through 12. Now it gets tight and technical through the double right-handers of 13 and 14 as your car then has to twist to the left and contorts its way through the tight apex of turn 15. Piastri's time is falling away. George Russell is flying in the Mercedes, fastest of anybody through the first two sectors. First lap on the board comes from Ollie Behrman with a 1:33.1. Pole time last year from Lando Norris was a 1:32.3. One final corner to go for Oscar Piastri. He crosses the line and he's second. He's slower than Ollie Behrman.
Yeah, it's something funny about the way that car was behaving. I was watching him. It looked like he was a little bit leery going through the very fast switchback corners of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to 9. You know, it just didn't look planted at all. They're in all sorts of trouble, I think, McLaren. They're not realising their full potential.
Well, you say that, but the other McLaren's just gone fastest in the first sector. Lando Norris, who's felt and looked more comfortable than Oscar Piastri. I wonder if this is just Piastri not quite clicking with the circuit this year. Russell fastest, a 1:32.9, just over a tenth and a half clear of his teammate Kimi Antonelli. Mercedes have come to play this afternoon in the Texan Stun. It's a good lap from Behrman. He's up there in third, just under 2 tenths away from George Russell. Max Verstappen, though, embarks on his flying lap, and he's fastest in the first sector. Sainz crosses the line behind Behrman, slots into fourth. Leclerc will need to go again. He's only done enough for sixth, just ramping up as the Ferrari driver. Lando Norris was fastest in the first sector, has now lost that to Max Verstappen. Antonelli holds the fastest middle sector. Norris looks a little bit untidy coming out of the final sector, but he's still absolutely smashed his teammate out of the park. Norris goes to the top on these first runs. He's half a second clear of his teammate, who's down in sixth.
It's not going to be for long, though, is it, Harry? I think we're watching Max Verstappen, who looks very neat and tidy. We've got 2 fastest sectors. The first 1-2 sectors. He might have run a little bit wide on that last but one corner, turn 19. He's finishing his lap now. It looks pretty neat, as you'd expect. And there he goes, straight to the top of the pile.
By nearly 4 tenths of a second. Max Verstappen, in the opening part of Q3, puts himself on provisional pole. The 2 Ferraris, though, right at the back, 9th and 10th. Didn't see their laps. I don't know if something went wrong for Charles Leclerc, because he's nearly 5 seconds off the pace on that one. Lewis Hamilton in 9th, Alonso 8th, Piastri 7th, Sainz is 6th. Behrman's time puts him into the top 5 behind the 2 Mercedes of Antonelli and Russell, and then it's Norris and Verstappen. The 10 contenders in this final part of qualifying for the United States Grand Prix.
So it's worth saying, by the way, now this is according to the timing screens, so pinch of salt perhaps, but Behrman, Sainz and Alonso and Piastri were all on used tyres. Now, Piastri being on used tyres for the first run in Q3 tells its own story about how he's been struggling, because usually the cars that are competitive can get through Q1 and Q2 while managing their tyres enough to have 2 new sets of tyres. So that just emphasises how much he's been struggling through this session so far. And meanwhile, Jenny was saying earlier about how Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton was saying, we're seeing Charles Leclerc spinning. I was just about to say they've had a nightmare, Ferrari, because to back Jenny's point up, or Lewis Hamilton's point up I should say, about how they go off the boil in Q3. Hamilton is only 9th fastest on new tyres, and Leclerc is nowhere, no surprise, having spun out of the last corner there.
Hamilton did lock up in turn 1 and went wide on his lap, so that might explain where it went away for Lewis Hamilton as well. We just saw that before we saw Charles Leclerc coming through the final corner and losing the rear end of his Ferrari and finding himself spinning round. So those perhaps the reasons for Hamilton and Leclerc being 9th and 10th right now, but we'll get another go at it and the final runs in a few moments time. We're into that lull in the middle of Q3 where it's quickly back to the garage. A few final tweaks to the front wing, new tyres called for, and for McLaren, one driver up in second but 4 tenths away from Verstappen, and the other, the man leading the championship, struggling nearly a second off, down in 7th place right now. And after the action we saw in the sprint race earlier on today, the stakes are so high for those challenging for the Drivers' Championship. We have a man who is reeling them in slowly but surely, with the experience of 4 world titles to his name, and the caveat that his name is Max Verstappen, versus 2 McLaren drivers on the cusp of their first ever world championships in Formula One, one with much more experience than the other. But we've still got 6 Grand Prix to go, and we are qualifying for the first of those right now in the United States in Texas.
Well, what Andrew was saying about the tyres obviously explains why Oscar was looking a little bit like he wasn't glued to the track. And a used set of tyres is not ideal, but why would he use a used set of tyres? It may be that this crash at the beginning, the first run at Q1, Isaac Hadjar has basically stymied some of the guys. They may have lost a set of tyres and they just simply don't have enough to run 2 tyres in this session. So this is it now. They've all got brand new tyres on. Some have already used them. They've got a feel for them. So Verstappen and Norris, and I think Russell and Antonelli used new tyres, and Behrman used new tyres, but the others were all using up old tyres. So they won't have quite the same insights that the guys who ran on new tyres will have. So advantage Lando and Max Verstappen and the Mercedes at the moment.
2.5 minutes on the clock. Charles Leclerc back out there. The Ferraris then under pressure after scrappy opening laps need to find themselves back up in the mix. They've looked better than they did yesterday in sprint qualifying. Those scarlet Ferraris looking beautiful as the sun glints off them. Both of them now out there on track. Hamilton joining Leclerc as Max Verstappen is sent into the pit lane. Norris is out there already along with Russell. Kimi Antonelli just emerges from the pit exit now. Everybody out onto the track then. 10 drivers fighting it out for the top 10 positions ahead of the United States Grand Prix. It looks like Max Verstappen has that slight advantage already on provisional pole. Final laps coming your way. Precision needs to be at an all-time high. Track limits here being watched like a hawk. So easy to lose grip as well through the high-speed Sector 1 where you're travelling left, and right again through the S's. Charles Leclerc is about to make his way there up towards Turn 1. Hits the apex, finds himself on the exit, tries to apply the throttle, the rear end just wanting to step out and not play ball. He manages to control it and now dances through the sunshine through 4, 5 and 6. Absolutely wringing the neck of that Ferrari. He's a 10th down on Max Verstappen through Sector 1.
Some people believe that Charles Leclerc is the fastest driver over one lap in Formula 1, and he certainly is. He's able to get a ridiculous pole position to lack of wins ratio as well. I think it's 22 pole positions.
Just seeing a radio message slightly on delay. We need to go. We're I think that was out of position or something like that from Max Verstappen. What did he say?
They're in danger of not making the flag, getting round in time to start their lap.
I think they were going out very late. I thought that's a sign of confidence, but if you do it too slow an out lap, you won't make it to the line. So we've got a little bit of an issue there for Max. Can he actually get his last run in? As we see now, Lando Norris is now going to start his lap, and right behind him is Piastri. But the Ferraris are the first out on track. They've got it all to do. They just didn't get it done on the first run. So this is crucially important. Lewis Hamilton not doing his fastest middle sector, so he's had a bit of an issue in the middle sector.
Yeah, Hamilton not finding the time. Charles Leclerc, one more corner to go for the Monegasque. Let's see what he can do in that Ferrari. It's enough for second, 3/10 adrift. Hamilton almost 3/10 down in the middle sector. The checker flag is out. Max Verstappen did not make the flag. He was so close, but millimetres away as he just ambles down the start-finish straight now. But he's got such an advantage. Will anyone even be able to challenge him anyway? Hamilton doesn't find time compared to his teammate, takes the flag in fourth. Carlos Sainz is improving, but what about Oscar Piastri? What about Lando Norris? Norris's lap is doing nothing for him at the moment. Oscar Piastri is slightly better through the first sector. Personal best for Piastri as Behrman has a lap time deleted. Russell takes the flag and puts that Mercedes up into third spot. It's Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren currently the top four. Carlos Sainz has a habit of upsetting the order at the moment, but he doesn't on this occasion. Doesn't out-qualify Behrman either in the battle for the midfield. Behrman takes the flag in 8th, Sainz in 9th. It's all eyes on Piastri now, but he's down on time in the middle sector. Norris takes the flag and finds time, but he won't get pole. Norris is second. Will he get the advantage on his teammate though? Oscar Piastri, the Australian who heads the championship but has looked anything but comfortable so far this weekend. He takes the line, but he finds time, but it's not enough. It's only 6th fastest for the championship leader. Oscar Piastri not finding form he needs here in Austin, Texas. The final car looking to take the flag will be Kimi Antonelli, who doesn't improve. He stays down in 7th. That is qualifying. That is Max Verstappen on pole for the US Grand Prix. Lando Norris alongside him. Charles Leclerc is 3rd. The championship leader Oscar Piastri down in 6th.
Well, this is a pendulum, a swinging moment, isn't it? Really, I mean, it's very, very important. It was important for Piastri to get a good lap in and get up there, at least in the top 3. But now he's got a bit of a job to do to catch up with the title contenders, both title contenders, who are looking to take points away from him. There they are, Max Verstappen, as you'd expect, on pole position, and Lando Norris, who will be sitting there thinking, I'm ready.
Okay, that's pole position, mate, and a set in hand.
Well, that's simply lovely. Very well done. Well done, everyone.
Yeah, very comfortable and confident Max Verstappen, and he's got a set in hand, which gives them a little option for the race as well. So that means probably a set of soft tyres. So I don't know how they managed to do that, but anyway, that's because they've just got everything right. They've got everything going, and they managed to sail through the. Even though they've got a set in hand because they.
He didn't get. Well, it was an operational error. He didn't get over the flag in time, did he?
He didn't get round to use them, so they've only just scrubbed them in.
Max Verstappen then parks up his Red Bull in Parc Fermé, tries to put his steering wheel back in, has to jostle it about a bit before he clambers over the halo and finds his 2 feet back on the ground, celebrates his 7th pole of the season. The man who sits 3rd in the championship, 55 points away from the championship lead, has 7 poles, 2 more than any other driver. I mean, it's just fascinating. You think there are certain races this year, if they'd gone just slightly differently, how close Max Verstappen would be now at this point in the season in challenging both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri for this championship. 47 career pole positions.
It's ridiculous. I mean, he is well on target, isn't he, for smashing all the records. And every time you see someone get a record, like whether it's Michael Schumacher or Lewis Hamilton, you think no one's going to get close to that. They thought that about Fangio when he won 5, but that was a long time ago now.
Oscar Piastri having to park up with the others in the grid because he only managed 6th fastest, did the man who leads the championship. It's not all over, of course. We'll have 56 laps of racing to get through before the big points are handed out, but he'll be behind Lewis Hamilton, behind George Russell, Leclerc, his teammate Norris and Verstappen. But maybe there's advantage to starting in 6th after what we saw in the sprint race.
I think he's not thinking that way at the moment, Harry. He's thinking, I don't have a car that's quick. I could not deliver the lap time that I needed. So why would I expect to be quick in the race? Clearly he's got a better car than the Ferrari and the Mercedes. You know, you'd think under all things being equal this season that Oscar would not be too worried about them, but by the time he gets through that lot, if he does, Lando and Max Verstappen will be a long way down the road.
It's a identical front row to the sprint race. Then Max Verstappen will line up alongside Lando Norris in P2 for the British driver. Started 2nd and has led lap 1 in 5 of the last 7 US Grand Prix. So it is advantageous more often than not to start in 2nd, even though you're on the dirty side of the grid.
Yeah, there's these statistics regarding Max particularly on pole position. I think it's only one person who's actually led from pole position in the last goodness how many years. I think it was Valtteri Bottas who managed to he
managed to hold on.
He got pole and he led for a lap. You know, so it's the nature of this corner, this designed corner that I think Alex Wirtz is claiming now that he designed. But the corner is unusual.
So congratulations, Max. Yeah, you're all in a line there. Our top 3 in qualifying. Max, you just missed out in starting that final lap. You didn't need it. That was a super impressive qualifying. Put us in the cockpit.
Yeah, it was good. I think every segment the car was very strong. Just trying to put the lap together around here sometimes can be quite tricky. Also, it's very hot, very strong winds as well, and then in that first sector having tailwind is challenging. Let's say like that. The first one in Q3 was good. Just managed to improve a little bit from Q2. Unfortunately, then I couldn't do my final run. It was a bit messy with the outlaps, but luckily, like you said, we didn't need it. So for us, again, very strong result.
It's been a super Saturday for you. Just explain actually to me and to our audience the difference in how this track's evolved in qualifying from yesterday to where you are today.
Yeah, again, just tricky with the wind. The wind picked up today compared to yesterday, and it managed to turn as well a little bit. So like a full-on tailwind into all the S's, and with that you just lose downforce. So the car is moving around a lot more, even compared to yesterday. So that made it a bit harder. Of course, in some corners you gain a bit of lap time back, but you can't commit as much as you normally can in Sector 1.
Well, excellent. You did it very well nonetheless. Now, Lando, you had to work hard for that. It was looking tight, but right at the very end you found the lap. So it looked like you were not as comfortable as a team until that final lap.
Well, I improved like half a tenth or so 10. So it was a bit more of a struggle today for whatever reason. Yesterday I was just quite comfortable, and I don't know if it's just everyone else has improved a bit or the wind today hurt us a bit more. But we were both struggling quite a bit more today just to put the laps in and to be as quick as this guy. So we were pushing, and I'm so happy with P2. It could have been worse, but there was no chance we could have gone pole today.
Yeah, and that sets you up nicely for the race start tomorrow. You had a bit of experience of that earlier today, so clean run hopefully at the start. I just don't get hit is my my clue for tomorrow. But I look forward to hopefully having a good race with Max. We've had some good ones in the past, so I'm looking forward to it again. Excellent, we're looking forward to it. Now, Charles, you came very late right to the front. How did you find that pace? And we heard from the two drivers there just how difficult the conditions were.
It was quite a big surprise, especially considering the weekend that has been very difficult for us since the beginning. We tried and put everything together in qualifying. We managed to do so, but I think there are still things we need to understand from this car, because there's a bit too much of a swing of performance in the same weekend without fundamentally changing the car. So we'll look into it. But it's been an interesting sprint race this morning. I think we've learned a lot. We applied that in qualifying, and it seems to be working. So I hope that from now on we kind of catch back a little bit.
Yeah, well, you never stop learning in this game. But overall, solid day today, sets you up well for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Our car is normally stronger in the race than it is in qualifying, so that's a positive. I don't know if it's strong enough to go and fight with Max and the McLaren, but we'll do everything. Hopefully a good start like this morning or last year, and then focus to stay in front. Okay, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
David Coulthard speaking to the top three from qualifying. Max Verstappen then takes pole position for the US Grand Prix ahead of Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc is third. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton the top five. Championship leader Piastri only sixth ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Ollie Behrman gets a career best quali in eighth ahead of Carlos Sainz. Fernando Alonso rounds out the top 10. But what awaits us in Texas on the Sunday? Big points are handed out. Stakes are high, and we know just how dramatic turn one and lap one can be here at the Circuit of the Americas. 56 laps to come your way. My thanks to the whole team. Damon Hill, the 1996 F1 champion, will be back alongside us in the commentary box for the race on Sunday, which you can hear live in full on BBC Radio 5 Live. We'll be building up with action on the grid with Jenny Gow from 7:30 in the evening ahead of Lights Out from 8 o'clock. We hope you can join us for it. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.